Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day is going wonderful. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today I'm super excited to share with you the brand new Make Yourself at Home kit from Hero Arts and Joann.com. I've been featuring this every month. The first Thursday of the month the kits go live, and this month it's all about fall. I'm going to share with you the contents of the kit, and then we're going to create 3 projects using it. This is included in the kit. You get 4 sheets of the No Shed glitter cardstock in beautiful fall colors. You also get 4 sheets of the sand colored, it's like a craft color cardstock, and then you also get 3 sheets of the beautiful wood grain embossed cardstock. All of these sheets are 5.5 inches wide by 8.5 inches tall, so lots of cardstock, and these are heavyweight, so any of these you could create card bases with, so that makes it really nice. Now also in this month's Make Yourself at Home kit, you also get a stamp set. This is the Autumn Wreath stamp set, and of course you get the frame cuts to go with it. They coordinate with all the images that you can cut out, and I just love how pretty this wreath is. And then there's little embellishment images that you can decorate your wreath with if you wanted to. You also get some embellishments, which are the Hero Hues enamel dots and beautiful fall colors. And then you get some ink cubes. These are mini ink cubes, and you get 4 pigment inks for your stamping, and the 4 colors are beautiful fall colors. The last ink cube is actually watermark ink, but I'm going to do a little swatch so you can see the beautiful colors. This one here is Tiger's Eye. Pigment ink does stay on the surface of your cardstock longer, and you'll notice there's a little glossy sheen. It takes a little while for it to dry. So this, if you want to put clear embossing powder over these inks, you can emboss with them, which makes it really nice. The green was Emerald, the red here is Ruby, and then the orange is Citrine. Beautiful fall colors, and again these are pigment ink, so they do take a little bit of time to dry, but beautiful rich colors, and they go perfect with your glitter cardstock and your enamel dots. Now you get your little mini embossing and watermark ink cube. I'm going to actually add this to some white cardstock, and we're going to do some embossing because Hero Arts included some beautiful, I want to say it's maybe a pewter or maybe even a copper color embossing powder. It is so pretty. I'm going to do a little swatch for you. I'm going to melt it, but you can see how coppery this warm color is, and it's just beautiful. And you get a full-size jar of that in the Make Yourself at Home kit. So that's really nice. So I'm going to grab my circle punch. This is what I like to do when I have new embossing powders. I'll just swatch it out, use my circle punch, and then glue that circle to the top of the lid of the embossing container so I know what color it is. But I think it's going to go really good with our projects today. So full-size jar with your watermark embossing powder, embossing ink cube works perfectly. So loaded kit, let's jump in and do some stamping for our first project. I'm going to go ahead and take the wreath in our Autumn Wreath stamp set. For this I am going to bring in my stamping positioner. I'm going to bring in some white cardstock. The cardstock that I'm bringing in is from my stash. Any white cardstock that you have would work. I'm going to put this in the corner, and we're actually going to stamp this wreath 3 times using each one of these inks. For my projects today, I'm not going to use any of the emerald ink on any of my images, just the brown, the red, and the orange. So this color here is Tiger's Eye. We're going to create a Tiger's Eye wreath and get up, and these are really juicy ink pads too, guys. I'll stamp this. And I just love the rich color of this. I'm going to remove my paper, set it aside, bring in another piece of cardstock, and then we're going to stamp our wreath one more. And remember to clean off your stamp in between this. You don't want to stamp the brown ink with your orange ink. It just would be good. This is the ruby ink. We'll stamp this, and then we're going to do our wreath one more time, this time with the citrine ink. So 3 different colors of wreaths. Now we're not going to use 3 different wreaths on 3 different cards. We're going to mix it up a bit. And I thought we would put 3 different colors of wreaths for one card and use the leftovers for another. We'll see how this turns out. I'm going to ink up my wreath one more time with my citrine ink, and all of our wreaths are good to go. Now these are beautiful on their own, but I do want to add a little bit of, I'm going to call it depth, by bringing in some Copic markers. I listed the ones that I'm going to be using up on top of the screen for you, but I just found some markers that coordinated with the colors of inks that I have, and then I'm going to go around each one of the solid leaves in the wreath and fill them in. And then there are some wreaths that have just one vein going through it. I filled in just one side of those just to give this a little bit more depth for my project today. This first card is just going to be basically wreaths, and so I wanted to add a little bit of something extra. So you can see here I finished all of them with my markers, and I just think they look so pretty. And I think these wreaths are just versatile because I think they would be really pretty for the holidays too, guys. So not just for fall or autumn. I think Christmas would be wonderful. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and grab our frame cuts. I'm going to go ahead and separate the dies and then line up the coordinating wreath on my image here. Now I did find I had to twist and turn it until it lined up perfectly. So you might have to lay your wreath, your frame cut down on your wreath and just kind of turn it until it kind of falls into place. Because once it die cuts, it just die cuts out beautifully. You can see here all the detail in it. So those 3 wreaths are done. Now I have a piece of the lighter gold cardstock, and then also the wood grain embossed cardstock. The wood grain embossed cardstock measures 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches, and then I'm going to mat that on a panel that's slightly larger. Now this step you can completely skip, but I found if I do this, I save on my glitter cardstock. I love this, especially for the holidays, and so if you can kind of budget your cardstock by cutting out a piece in the back, you have that extra piece for another project. So that's why I created a frame here. The recipient won't even know that you put a hole in it. So if you're going to need a circle using the glitter cardstock, die cut it behind your matte piece. This way you have extra. You'll see here what I mean in a minute. We're going to go ahead and take our wreath. I'm adding foam adhesive behind it, and we're going to put 3 of these. They're going to be overhanging, and that's okay. When you do overhang, you want to make sure that it's overhanging to about half of a wreath size, because we're going to use those leftover pieces for another card. So I'm happy with this. I'm going to use my scissors and trim off the excess. This one's going to cut beautifully. This one I'll cut one end. I'll just kind of go around the side of it and then trim one more time. That way we have that half wreath. You see what I mean? This one too, we'll cut on one end, and then I'll just turn my panel and cut the other end. This way we have 3 halves. 3 halves on the panel, 3 halves off the panel. And I think that just looks so pretty. I'm going to go ahead and use my tape runner, go all along the edge of this, and then we'll tack that down to our gold frame. And you can see, you will never know that we cut out that rectangle in the back, but we have that extra piece for a leather project later on. I'm going to adhere this to my card base. Now my card base I created with the sand colored cardstock that came in the kit. I just scored it at the 4 1/4 inch mark, and then used my bold folder and reinforced that score line to create my card base. For my sentiment, I'm bringing in some Hero Arts Classic layering vellum, and we're going to stamp Happy Thanksgiving on the vellum. The happy is going to go more towards the right, and then Thanksgiving, of course, will go just below it. I treated my vellum with my anti-static powder tool, and then we're going to ink up our sentiment with our watermark ink, and then we'll stamp this. I'm going to go ahead and take my gold, or I will call it gold embossing powder, but it's definitely not gold, guys. It's more like a copper. I'm going to take my embossing powder and go over my sentiment. We'll just pour the excess back in here. And I need to add a little bit more to the front of my sentiment. And then we'll heat set this. And our sentiment's good to go. I am going to use my paper trimmer and trim this down so it's the width of my white embossed background, and it's about maybe 1.25 inches tall. Now I was going to leave it at this, but I thought my wreaths just looked a little bit plain, so we're going to add a little bit more color to the white areas. And so in the stamp set there are these little berries. I'm going to stamp the berries twice with the same inks that I used for my wreath. So 2 times with the citrine, 2 times with the ruby, and then 2 times with tiger's eye. After we have our images stamped, I'm going to go ahead and use those same Copic markers, and I'm going to add a little shading to these images, just going from the bottom of the berry halfway up, just to add a little color to it. And then the very top of the berries too, I'll color in with the same Copic markers. Just so it's not a harsh end after I did my little shading, I am going to bring in my blender pen, my 0 marker, and fade out those harsh lines with this blender pen. And I love the way this turned out. You'll see in the close-ups how pretty this is. Now I used the coordinating die and die cut them out. So we have 2 for color. I'm going to go ahead and layer each of the coordinating berries with the coordinating wreath, just kind of filling in the area. And I love the way this turned out. I went ahead and adhered my vellum Happy Thanksgiving right down the center of my card, and I'm going to bring over a little bit of the orange from the wreath on the left by adding some of my orange enamel dots to the right of my Happy Thanksgiving. And I love the way this turned out, and this is project number 1. Okay, now we're going to move along to project number 2. I have our pieces left over. Now I'm going to create 3 different colored wreath. And remember, there is still foam adhesive behind here, so I don't have to add any of that. But I'm just making sure that I keep the circle shape. Now the orange is very harshly cut, so what I'm going to do is use my scissors and kind of go around a couple of the leaves, just so it's not a blunt end. We kind of have a more natural colored end, and then we'll just adhere this to complete our wreath. And I love the way this turned out. This turned out so pretty. I'm going to use my rectangle dies here. These are Hero Arts Infinity nesting dies. I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of frames. So this was the piece we cut out from our first card. I'm going to take a slightly smaller rectangle and die cut out a thin gold frame. And then I'll take this inside die and place it with a slightly larger die. And then we'll die cut out a frame with our brown glitter cardstock. Now what this is going to do, the inside rectangle is going to be the same size, but it's going to look like we matted that brown on it. I'm using my same sand colored card base that we created, and then I'm adding a slightly smaller than my card base piece of the wood grain embossed cardstock, which is so pretty, by the way, guys. This is very popular. In fact, right now it's sold out at Hero Arts, but when they get it back in stock, oh gosh, I could see why. It's just beautiful cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and add my frame directly to my card base here, right in the center of our wood grain embossed cardstock. You can see up above I did stamp 3 of the flowers that were in the stamp set, and I did the same kind of shading as I did with the berries on our first card. I just did a little bit of blending with it to make the flowers a little bit more flowing, I guess you could say. I stamp with the same color inks too. So I have ruby, I have tiger's eye, and I have the citrine. We're going to add all 3 of these in a little cluster towards the bottom of our wreath here. And then we're going to go ahead and stamp our sentiment. I stamped autumn with tiger's eye ink. we're going to stamp happy with ruby ink. After we have these stamped, and I'm going to bring these to my paper trimmer and just trim them down, and I'll fishtail the right side of them to create some banners. We're going to tape both of these together, and we're going to tuck these underneath the flowers here. We're going to go ahead and add adhesive on the reverse side of our sentiment, and then remove our red flower there, add our sentiment, and put our red ruby flower right over the seam. This way it kind of covers that straight edge. I went ahead and embellished with a few of our enamel dots, and that is card number 2. Now for my final card today, we are going to create a colorful fall background by using those same 3 inks. So we're going to basically take the acorn, stamp with our tiger's eye ink, and then there's 2 fall leaves in the stamp set. One's a maple and one looks like it's I went blank, guys, but they're both fall leaves. I'm going to stamp the other one with a ruby ink, just filling in the entire background. Now once our background's filled, this is white cardstock that I brought from my stash, guys, and so is this piece. We're going to stamp our sentiment on a thinner strip. This is actually measuring 1 3/4 inches wide. We're stamping happy first with ruby. We're going to lower or raise our panel, I should say, stamp it with a citrine, raise our panel a little bit more, clean up our stamp, and then stamp it with the tiger's eye. So we have a whole lot of happy going on. I'm just making sure they're kind of evenly spaced. It ends up being you're raising it about a little bit over 1/4 inch. I'm going to go ahead and stamp autumn with my ruby ink right below it. So we have happy, happy, happy autumn. Can never have too much happy, right? Oh, it's not and I said autumn, forgive me. I meant harvest. So happy, happy harvest. Happy, happy, happy harvest. Okay, this is looking good. I am going to trim down my happy harvest panel, and it ends up measuring 1 3/4 inches wide by 2 1/4 inches tall. We're going to go ahead and add our fall background to our card base, which is the same sand cardstock. And then I went ahead and trimmed down 3 different sizes of the glitter cardstock. So we have the orange, the brown, and then the light gold. We matted all 3 of those together. I put that on towards the upper portion of my card, just using my tape runner, and then I popped up this panel with some foam squares. This is going to go right in the middle. Now all we have left to do is embellish it, so we'll take some more of our enamel dots and just fill in some open areas in our background to add a little bit of dimension. But that's my 3rd project today. I hope this gives you some ideas on how to use the Make Yourself at Home card making kit. Now, in case you guys are new, this kit is from Hero Arts, but it's only available at Joann.com, so it's exclusive to Joann.com. And I'll leave the link down below if you guys want to head over there. It is a fantastic value, and it'll be listed below. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. Have a lovely day, and we will see you again real soon.